And we are live. Welcome to our LinkedIn live broadcast. We are once again having one of our sessions for LinkedIn Local Barbados, our online event, our opportunity to share knowledge with the community, to meet one who is a part of a strong LinkedIn brand, a strong presence on LinkedIn from Barbados. We have with us this afternoon the one, the only Donna Every. I
Hi.
love your last name. Hi, Donna.
Hi,
And,
Marjorie.
and this session, as you know, is entitled Meet the Author. And we're going to have the opportunity to hear from Donna for the next hour or so. I'm just going to give a little chance for those of you who may be receiving the notice and now coming on over to take the opportunity to join us this afternoon. For those of you who may not recall, my name is Marjorie Wharton, and I am the host for LinkedIn Local Barbados, and it is my pleasure and privilege always to be able to host these events. I am always excited to get the opportunity to share information, learn new things, ask some really good questions because of the conversations that we are having. And then when I see the comments after the broadcast, there's always a lot of insight and good feedback. I find that those of you in the community who join us, you're able to share valuable information that's useful. And I want to encourage more of you to do that, because the more we have people adding comments and sharing information, the more active our community is, the more we are all learning, the more we're all benefiting from it. So right now, I'm going to start this process off by asking Donna to tell us a little bit about herself. So Donna,
Okay.
tell us how would you describe yourself?
I always call myself as, I describe myself as an accountant turned entrepreneur. So I started out in accounting. I was an auditor. Then I went into corporate finance and entrepreneurial services. And I discovered that that was not my passion. My passion was actually motivational speaking and training, and later on writing. So I transitioned from corporate finance into training and speaking and that kind of thing. So I'm a person who loves to interact with people and to help them to find their purpose, their potential, and especially to succeed in business.
Okay. And they're certainly trying to post the link to the broadcast so that anybody who's looking for it can find it on my timeline, and it wasn't as subtle as I thought it would have been.
That's all right.
But I find that your journey then from having started as an accountant to where you are now and what you're doing now, that seems like a big jump. It wasn't a big jump for you?
Yeah, it was. Although I did some things along the way. But as I said, when I finished UE, I had a degree in math. I didn't know what I wanted to do with it, but I got accepted a job I was Ernst & Young. It was Arthur Young at the time, so I was going back many, many years. Okay. And I started doing that. But along the way, I discovered that it really was not my passion. Okay. And I started doing training in the firm, and I realized I love this. This is something that I want to do. I remember watching Les Brown and thinking, oh my goodness, I want to be a Les Brown. So that's how it all transitioned. And even when I was in corporate finance and doing all those projections and everything, my passion was really to do the narrative. So if you were doing a sheer prospectus or something, I wouldn't be so much enjoying the financial side. I enjoyed writing and creating the narrative that went with, like a business plan or a prospectus or something like that. So I've always had a creative side of me, although I did maths and accounts and that kind of thing.
Okay, so I just have to, because I'm always amazed at people who study mathematics at university level. So your first degree was in mathematics?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, all right. So we understand the kind of brain that we're working with. And so you move from that into the more creative side. Now, I find that interesting because people are always saying that you're either one or the other. But you succeeded at the first degree in mathematics, and then you find greater joy in the creative side.
Yeah, I do.
How does that balance work out for you, or is there a balance?
Well, I'd say I still do accounts for our businesses, for my business, etc. So I'm not totally divorced from it. But in terms of working for somebody else and doing that, no. I just love the creative side. I could write all day long. I could speak out. So there's something that was latent inside of me that I discovered a bit later in life. But I really encourage people, especially if you're in a job that you're not enjoying, you're hating. And although you can't afford to pick and choose so much right now, I really encourage people to really find their passion and go after it. there was a saying that I used to have, which it still works for me, is that until you can do what you love, learn to love what you do. So
Okay.
that's what happened to me. Although I was in a job that I didn't particularly love, I found ways to like it and to enjoy doing it until I could leave and do what I really want to do. So I
Okay.
encourage people to do that.
Okay, that's very good advice because
Yeah.
there are a lot of people out there, I think, who believe they're miserable and that that's normal. And, and they endure, sometimes not even thinking
Yeah.
that it can be temporary and you're eventually moving into what you really love. So that's very good advice. And that's a good example that you've set.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit about how you got started. What made you make that transition from thinking about writing or loving writing to actually going into do it
Okay.
in a big
Well,
way?
actually, when I was at Ernst, I actually started writing a book for entrepreneurs because that's my passion, helping entrepreneurs, particularly women. Not that I have anything against men, but my lean is to help women entrepreneurs. So I started writing a book then, and because it was business, it was it's just something that I did, I enjoyed doing. But I didn't actually start writing until after I left Ernst Young and started doing training and so on. Did that first book. My very first book was a tiny book called "What Do You Have in Your House." We chatted about that, and it really was like a little tiny book. And I really want people to read it in, like, say, half hour, an hour, grasp the principles, and start running with it. And it really was to help people to take whatever gifts, abilities, talents they had, and to earn money from that. So that was my first venture into writing, and I did a follow-up book to that. And then my husband said to me one day, "Why don't you write a novel? You're always reading, why don't you write a novel?" I said, "Well, I don't know. I don't think I could write a novel. I've never done that." And he said, "Well, try it out." So I tried it. And my first novel, The Merger Mogul, it was still business background, but it was a romance with business background. People really enjoyed it. And that kind of started me off on the whole journey. Because I never, I was not growing up and saying, I want to be an author or anything like that. That never entered my mind. But the transition has been beautiful. And it's something I love, I really love to do. It's nothing like having a blank computer screen, a blank Word document, say, and pull in whatever from my mind, from heaven, and creating something. So that's the joy of my life.
Okay, that's fantastic. That's not how most writers describe that process.
Really?
Most writers, well, I don't know if most, but many writers are terrified by the prospect of the blank computer screen and
Really?
blank page. So it's really great that you're passionate about it and you're excited
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit because in preparing for this, I did mention to you that I thought your first book and what it was asking us to focus on what we already have and figuring out how to make money from that. Use what you have.
Yeah.
I thought that was really some very good advice for us all now, especially the situation we're in where people may be challenged financially. They may want to supplement their income or they have to replace their income because they've lost their job or their business.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that, some of the content of that and what you think could be useful for people to know now.
That book was actually published in 2009. Can you believe it? But recently, a number of readers have been calling me or messaging me and saying, I dug out the book again because now that we're in this situation, I'm trying to find out what to do. So the whole premise behind the book is based on principles from a story called The Widow's Oil. And really, the widow was in a financial crisis, and the principles that she used to get out of that crisis is what I'm sharing in the book. So the first thing is, you try and find out what you have in your house, literally, possibly, or figuratively, what gifts you have, what talents, what abilities. And when I was doing $20 challenge, some of the kids would actually have like fruit and make juices. So it could be something literal that you have in your house. It could be your computer even. That is just something that you can use to generate revenue. Or it's just, as I said, other talents and so on. And you take those and then you actually start to look at all the people you know, who you call your neighbors. So they're not necessarily your own neighbors, but your network. And you go to your network and you get them to give you opportunities to sell your oil. So your oil is whatever you have. You go to your neighbors and you get opportunities to sell your oil. So, for example, I shared on my video, I have a little video series out now, a free video series about the book, on the book. A few years ago, I had just put out my book, Clues, and one of my school teachers from primary school days, she has a book club. So she invited me to come and share at the book club. So my oil is the book, Clues. My neighbor is my teacher, who was, primary school teacher, and she gave me the opportunity to come share. So obviously everybody in book club would have bought a book, And I was able to also bring some of my other books there to sell while I was there. So that's how you work it. You connect with people that you know, and you ask them for opportunities to sell your oil, to bring your, your gifts, your abilities, whatever your business. I'm gonna say even business, your talents to the table, money from that.
Okay.
Basic.
So, tell us a little bit about the video series. How, if someone wants to find this video series because they've not been able, or they don't have the book, or they see that the video series could build on the book, how would they access it? Where would they find it?
It's on my website, donnaevery.com. Very simple, www.donnaevery.com. And it's there. So you just sign up, and they're just 3 videos. They're very short, because as soon as you click on, you see a video that's 15 minutes or something, you go, oh no, right? So they're not. They're about 5 minutes tops. So the 3 videos sharing the principles, and they have worksheets you can download and get going. So I really encourage you to just go and do it. It's free, as I said, totally free, and the principles are there. If you want to download the book, it's on Amazon, so you can do that. But the principles are there, and you can just go through and watch them and get started.
Okay. And what I'm hearing from your description of that, you seem to be suggesting really that we all have some talent that we can start, and that starting is really easy. And it also seems to be suggesting that because you're working with people you already know, that there's the potential then to grow out, start small, start where you are, and grow from there.
Yes. So, I mean, I think people, when they think, oh, you need to start a business, say, oh, I don't have any money. But if we really look at what we have, for example, I have a friend who, she's an English teacher, but we were chatting and she was saying she needs to earn some extra money. I said, well, what do you have in your house, right? And her degree was in, I don't know, communications, and she had a master's in something else, journalism, whatever. So I said, why don't you edit? I have some books. I had some issues with my first book with editing. Can you edit my books for me? So she said, okay, sure, I can do that. And she started editing. She ended up editing my last 6 books. And she's so good at it, because it's not just about just reading, and she would suggest things and so on. So she was using her oil, what she had in her house, totally free. It's nothing new. She had to go invest in it. It was already in her, and she started doing it. So because I was so happy with her, when I have people coming to me wanting to help with publishing a book or writing a book, I would immediately refer them to her. So I'm her neighbor, right? So she has her oil, her knowledge of how to edit and grammar and all that. I'm one of her neighbors now, because I can give her opportunities to earn money. And so I send people to her. And that's as easy as it is. And she earns money from that. Now, it's not I'm producing a book every day, but if I'm not, at least I've suggested somebody who's writing a book to go to her and get edited. And everybody I've sent has been really, they've been happy. So that's basic, starting to earn money without even investing anything else that you need.
How do you identify your oil? Because I'm thinking there are a lot of people out there who would say to you that they don't have any talent that they could really start with. So how do you identify? So for someone who perhaps has done a degree, let's say in communication, she may know that she has a skill in that, but she may not have a natural talent. It was fortunate that this lady that you were working with, she had a talent in it.
Yeah.
So how can a person identify their oil to be able to start using it?
Okay, well, there are a number of ways. First of all, what do you love doing? Because when you love doing something, it's usual that you're good at it. So like, I know a number of people say, oh, I love to bake. Now, I can't personally bake. So if people say, I love to bake, it's okay, well, you can, that's oil. That's oil right there, the ability to bake well. So even if, like, in my book, I talk about my mom making coconut bread to earn extra money. So she was good at it. People would tell her, this is really good. And she had a neighbor. She knew somebody who owned a supermarket. So that was her neighbor. So there's always something. Everybody has something. And like I said, if you don't have like people might be posting on Instagram and social media and everything, and they think that's nothing. People pay for that. People pay. I would pay for that. So even that is a skill or a talent that you might be good at, creating, followers and so on. And that's something you can sell. So there is always something. Nobody can tell me they have nothing. And I said, even if you don't have a particular talent, there's something in your house, even if it's stuff that books say that you had and they're sitting there, you can even sell them. So there's physical things in your house that you can sell, or if you don't have a talent, if you don't think you have a talent, that you can earn.
So your comment leads me to the point. What pops into my head as you're saying that is that very often we diminish our own value. Yeah. And so you may have an individual who perhaps, like your mom, may be baking very well,
Yeah.
but they think nothing of it. So they don't even see any value in what
Yeah.
contribution it could make to their family.
Absolutely.
And so it says too that we have to be open to that mindset, and we have to recognize that what we do, and sometimes the things we do easily,
Hmm.
can be of value and can help us when we are trying to move forward and do more.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. I always talk about mindset shift. So that's
Yeah.
that's a mindset shift that's needed there.
It's
So
true.
you mentioned as well women and entrepreneurship.
Hmm.
So how have you been able to use these skills, this information, this love to be able to help others to start or move forward with their businesses?
Okay, well, a number of ways. When I first put out my book, What Do You Have in Your House? People started calling me to speak. So I would do lots of free speaking at various places, organizations, and whatever, just to get the principles in people's hands. And then in 2014, Women's Entrepreneurship Day got launched globally, started in New York by Wendy Diamond, and she got amazing. She got almost a whole globe, like not a whole, but 83 countries or whatever came on board. Barbados was one. She was looking for somebody in Barbados to represent Women's Entrepreneurship Day. I was in a women's organization at the time. I was asked to do it, and I really enjoyed it because I did it for 3 years, and then I handed over to a successor. But in the time I was doing Women's Entrepreneurship Day as the Barbados ambassador, I was able to pull together women. We would have on November, it's usually November the 19th or somewhere along there, a day where we celebrate women and we come together and network and so on. So what would happen is I'd be able to get space at say one of the hotels, and we would have speakers come in and chat to the women, and then quite a number of them were able to bring their products and services and set up tables. So apart from networking and chatting and listening, they were actually able to showcase their products and services. That was really good. And a lot of the women were saying, we want something like this more often, where women can come together and network and share various things. And then in 2015, I was selected to be the Barbados facilitator for a World Bank project called the WINK Acceleration Program, where we're helping women entrepreneurs to grow their businesses more rapidly. What happens is many times we find that we have one-man show businesses, and it's very survivalist. You're just barely making it. You bow down the business. You're doing the baking, the whatever, the producing, and you're not really able to grow your business. So it really was trying to help women to grow their businesses. So I did that we had two cohorts of that. And again, we had women entrepreneurs coming together, and it was an amazing time because what happened is women got to share what was going on in their business. And then they realized, what? It's not only me. It's not only me feeling this way. It's not only me dealing with some of these issues. And it really created a strong bond between the women, and we're able to help one another. Somebody may say, well, you know what? I went through this with employees, so I understand what to do when you're doing employees. And so it was real sharing of information, and we started even using each other's services. And so those are two of the ways that I have been able to help women entrepreneurs to grow. And right now I work for BYBT sometimes as a trainer, if they have training programs online, or as a mentor as well, and they're not only women, they're both men and women. But like for mentoring, I more likely get paired with a woman to help mentor and training. So I've always been involved from the time I was at Ernst Young, when we used to do Entrepreneur of the Year program. That's going back many years. I've always been involved with entrepreneurs, and really enjoyed to see how entrepreneurs come up with their ideas and really know to help them to grow. So even in this shutdown period, I really encourage people to take the time to work on your business, because we're always working in it. We're always pedaling and hustling and doing things. I know that we have some time to just sit down a bit. Well, some of us, not all. It's time to work on your business. So some of the things I've been suggesting that people do is to start writing down these systems. And it is as straightforward as writing a letter. If you sit down, you want to write a letter to a client. So in your head, you know how to do it. But if you want to be able to leave your business and have somebody come in and do that, you have to actually document step by step what you do. So for every process in your business, you literally have to write down what you do step by step and have it somewhere, so that if you want to expand your business, if you want to go away for a weekend, because I remember when we were doing the WINK Acceleration Program, we had one of the ladies who had not had a vacation for 17 years because she was so stuck in her business. And when she finally hired a manager to help run, because some, you say, can I afford to have this person, a manager, etc.? When she took the leap and she hired a manager, she was able to go on a staycation with her husband. And I thought that was just, that really moved me. That was really exciting to see that happen. So we really need to start growing our businesses by putting systems in place so that anybody can come in and do it for us so that we can separate ourselves from the business.
Okay. And I suppose that part of the challenge with that is a lot of entrepreneurs are just seeing themselves in the trying to cope, trying to keep up and trying to do the best they can just to get income coming in. So they're not really thinking all the time about that step back and seeing the bigger picture.
Yeah.
So that's very good advice.
Thanks. Good.
Now, one thing I will ask you this, because when you were talking, it occurred to me to ask you, are there any special peculiarities you found in dealing with women entrepreneurs versus men as entrepreneurs?
Well, I don't tell the truth, deal with a lot of men.
Okay.
If I do, I guess even in many as I earn young and doing business, I think maybe men have a lot more confidence in going about what they're doing, and I don't know if like I find with women, and even with myself, I went through this. I had something I used to suffer with called imposter syndrome. I don't know if you've ever heard of imposter syndrome, right? Well, that's when you think, I really don't know what I'm doing. What am I doing here? And it really is funny because even if you're well qualified, if you have all whatever accolades, there's just something that still tries to tell you that you really don't know what you're doing. You're just a fraud. So sometimes I find that that's something that women have to fight against. And it's not just women entrepreneurs, it's women in business, women in corporations. And it's amazing some of the people who I discovered who had it, who are in high positions in organizations that you would not know. But when you start to talk to them, you realize that it is something that they have. So I think that's one of the things I have found with women entrepreneurs. And then there's always the gender issue things. Like I've heard stories about trying to get loans and so on. I mean, I never had that personally because my business is not capital intensive. It's all, knowledge and so on. Computer, my head, I'm good to go. But for people who want to invest in like a restaurant or those kind of things, who have had to battle to get funding, there's always those kind of issues. And I'm hoping that changes. And maybe it is changing a bit more. Now there are other options to get money other than going to the usual financial institutions.
Okay. All right. Okay. So you mentioned being an entrepreneur now, and you mentioned the fact that you've worked yourself with women entrepreneurs, but you are in an industry that's notoriously seen by people as you don't get a lot of reward from it, a creative entrepreneur. People always say it's hard, there's a lot of work. Generally people who are creative entrepreneurs are doing something else on the side. They're doing the creative entrepreneurship more out of love than out of an ability to be able to support themselves. How have you been able to, or have you been able to kind of get yourself into that mindset where you're saying, okay, I'm a creative entrepreneur. This is what I do. The other stuff just supports it.
Okay. Well, I think you have to have a business mind because a lot of creatives don't tend to. And I've been fortunate because I've come through a business background. I can be quite, I wouldn't say like very business minded about my creative things. So I know like a lot of artists, they would paint these wonderful paintings and then they don't want to sell them for this or, they don't want to push it and do it. So I would say that you really need to link that creative side with the business side. And if you don't personally have that, you need to have somebody who can help you with that. And if you don't have the money to do that, there's always bartering, right? So in my early days, for example, when I was trying to get covers designed for my books or whatever, and I didn't have the money to do that, I would barter my accounting services and I would do somebody's account and the graphic artist would do my cover. So, there's stuff that you can do, but you really need to, you can't just be too romantic about your creative idea. You have to really find ways to sell it and market it.
Yeah.
And I can't say that I've always been the model person to do it because sometimes you can just, I can write any number of books. It's the marketing and the promoting and the flogging, and that's where the rubber hits the road, really.
Yeah, because there are some creatives who consider if you're focusing on the money side of it, you're selling out.
Yeah,
you're not being true to your gift, and the allure of being a starving artist It's still something that a lot of people believe that you have to do if you want to be true to your art and so on. So I like the fact that you're talking about that recognition that yes, it's creative and yes, there's that, but there's also the entrepreneur, the business side of it. That's something that's important for the process as well.
Yeah.
And so as you're saying that, what I'm hearing is that that's perhaps where that balance is coming out for you, that being having the kind of brain that focuses on the business, the numbers side, and the also that other side of your brain that's focusing on the creative and being
Yeah.
able to bring those two together.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate actually to have come through. Although I said I didn't love my job, I really am very
Mhm.
fortunate to have come through that whole business background side because now I can bring that to the table. Even with my husband's business, he just started a construction company. So we don't have to go and pay an accountant because that's my job now. So I'm doing that for him for
Yeah.
huge salary. Not really. But so I'm helping him, but so doing that. So having gone through that and been able to do tax and all those various things that at the time
Mhm.
were like unpalatable, they really are paying off now because now we don't have to pay somebody to do that. And I'm
Mhm.
able to bring that side of my brain, the left side apparently, to the table in his business and in my business.
Mhm. What are some of the key things if you were going to advise someone, anybody who's listening now, who perhaps is a creative entrepreneur and currently facing that difficulty in linking those two sides of their brain? What are some of the key things you would say that they need to identify and focus on to track their business performance?
Okay. Well, as I said, even going back to the book again, having the oil is one thing.
Right.
The second thing is having an outlet for it. So you may have your paintings, but you really need to have opportunity to sell those paintings. So you really need to have a plan. Now, I'm not big on marketing. I'm not a marketing person, but for sure, you need to have ways to sell your product. There's no point in just having all these paintings stacked up on a wall. You need to have a way to sell it. So I would really advise that you put a list of all the people that you know, as I said, your neighbors, and then talk to them and see what opportunities they can give you to sell your product or service, and get people around you who can help you. As I said, you might not know everything. You might not know how to even. I mean, I'm amazed that I should be amazed, but because I'm come up in accounting and so on, that people don't even know how to balance a checkbook and stuff like that. I was surprised and shocked and horrified to know that, and I realized, there are things that you take for granted. So even things
Mhm.
like that, you can get people to help you with. And simple accounting software now, you don't even have to know accounts to do things, but you really have to keep track of your costs and all those things. The things that seem yucky to creatives, but it really is imperative to know if you're doing anything, if it's making sense or not. So
Mhm.
you need to surround yourself with people who can help you. And as I said,
Okay.
if you don't have the money, find ways to barter.
Yes. And of course, the marketing piece is an important thing, as you said there. And you've actually suggested a very simple way to do the marketing. You start with your network, start with
Yeah,
people you know.
yeah,
And we all know that word of mouth is one of the strongest way to
absolutely.
sell your product. So if you have someone you trust telling you about something else, then you're more likely to go try it or
Yeah,
trust it or want to know more about it because it's someone you know who's recommending it. So
yeah,
that's a good place to start.
absolutely.
So what have you been doing to build your brand and to keep your brand out there in the public's eye?
Okay, well, I'm actually in the process of refreshing my brand. As I told you, this is version 2.0, right? But while I've been home, as I said, I did the video series, and that's literally using what I have in my house.
Mm-hmm.
So, camera, my daughter to take the video,
Mm-hmm.
edit it, go on Vimeo, and I use that Vimeo, edit it, put it out there. And what it is doing is as a providing something help for people while they're home, but it's also I'm working on my business because this is no secret. Obviously, when you ask people to sign up for your video, you're capturing their information. So I'm building my contact list as well as helping
Mm-hmm.
somebody. So they're giving me their email and giving them some free principles to work on. So I'm also looking at getting some other things online because like I've done writing workshops and it's on in a classroom setting. And then I've had a number of people, even from outside of Barbados, saying, can you do a webinar? So now that I'm home, and now that we're online, writing webinar or something is something I can work on. And there's some other things I was working on and not getting the time to do before because I was out and about. And those are things now that I'm refreshing and getting ready to put on online. And even my books, because the books are they're on Amazon, they're available. So, and if you're a Kindle person, a lot of people still like paper in their hand. I'm a Kindle convert now. I get it, download it, read it. So they're still out there. So I've been promoting my books because you're home. You're tired of hearing about COVID-19 till it's coming through your ears. And if you want to escape, I've been saying, if you want to escape, get a book, get into it for a couple of hours, and you just, get away from all this stuff that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So even though we're here, I'm still working on my business and getting ready to relaunch when we come out of this again.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about, because you slipped down there really quickly and just kind of glossed over it, this writing workshop.
Oh,
there are a lot of people out there who think that they have the talent to write, but they're always nervous to get started, or they think it's too hard, or whatever other excuse we all have for why we're not doing it. So what would be some of the guidelines or tips you would offer people, or you have offered people as part of your workshop to get them started or keep them going? Well,
both. Get them started. First of all, are you writing fiction, nonfiction? And there's differences, obviously. I write both. I write fiction and nonfiction. I kind of love fiction, to tell the truth. It gives you creative, that's where the creative juices can flow. But starting from that, people need to decide what it is you're writing. If you're writing nonfiction, you need to know who you're writing to. You have to be expert in the thing that you're writing about, whether it's something you overcame and you will share that or whatever. So getting started is usually the hard part. And then having the discipline to continue. So I usually, for me, when I'm writing, I would say, okay, if I'm writing 80,000 words and I want to finish my book in 3 months, I literally divide the number of days I have by the words. And I say, every day I need to write 2,500 words or 2,000, whatever. And of course, some days you slip up and other days, So you have systems in place to set up and measure. I actually have an Excel spreadsheet to measure how many words I've written and so on.
Wow.
So people, you have to be really disciplined. I'm not saying that I'm always 100% disciplined, but you have to be, because when you slip back, you need to make up time. So people will come to me, will call me and say, I'm trying to write a book. I don't know what to start, how to start. So what I try to do is to help them along the starting process. Are you ready for your fiction? What is the plot? What kind of genre? Those kind of things. And then a lot of people also call me and ask me, how do you publish? Now, my first 2 books I had a publisher, and that relationship went sour, so I cut them back and I self-published. So I self-publish my books now. And Amazon is amazing. It's easy. It's almost free, because even now they're giving you covers. You can create your own cover. I personally like to get my covers done here locally with the artists here, so I can exactly get what I want. But everything else is free. They even give you templates. So it is really easy. So what I do is take people through the steps of how to publish. Once you've written your stuff, how to get it out there. And that's only step 1. The next part is the marketing, the getting it out there, the blogging it. So I try to take you through that whole gamut of things that you need to do to get published.
Okay.
And all it comes down to really is discipline, and passion, really.
Okay. Because there are a lot of people that are passionate, but it's the discipline part that's the issue. They're excited that they will come and tell you about the story, and this is what it's going to be, and this is what's going to happen. But then to actually know, let's say that you want to write 80,000 words, and you want it to be finished in 3 months, and therefore you need to do this. I don't think a lot of us are thinking about it that way.
Well, I don't think about it that way now. No, I've been done the first one. Now I can think about it that way.
Yeah. Okay, all right. So those of you who are thinking of becoming authors, but you're not there yet, you're getting an advance into where you need to go to in order to become successful and be an author that repeatedly writes. Because I have a colleague who's recently said she was advised by an author that once you start, you keep writing.
You have to.
The problem I think a lot of people do is they write the first book and it's like, oh, thank God, that's done.
Yeah, I found after my first novel, I should say, I quickly wrote the second one, so I would not be a one-book wonder. So, and then from there on, it's been just flowing. I actually have not written anything since I've been on shutdown. I have to tell you that, because I think I'm in a different season right now. And the season really is promotion. So I have a lot of books there. I really need to do more promotion. That's what I'm focusing on in this season. But yeah, you once you get going, it's you have
to keep going.
Yeah.
And discipline is important. So that's very good to know, because a lot of successful artists, not just writers, always talk about that. People who paint and so on also talk about needing the discipline and having to do it repeatedly and consistently. Yeah. So that's a very good point. So tell us about your other books, because you mentioned the first one, Using What You Have. And that really it's true, where I wanted to start because I felt that it really is useful for us now in this time that we're in. But I know that you've written not just one, but you have more than one series.
Yeah, Yeah, yes.
Yes, yeah. So I want you to tell us something about your books, your
Okay.
fiction books, all of which I know are available on Amazon. Yes.
Yes, and in pages as well. Um, my first, as I said, the first one was the Merger Mogul, which was business merged with romance.
Okay.
My books are not specifically Bayesian in content, so there are some. It's not like I wouldn't say, it's not like a George Lamin type of book kind of
Yeah.
thing. When I say George Lamin, you know what I mean, like a
Yeah.
Bayesian.
Yeah.
So it's written really for an international audience. So my book was set in Manhattan, but the people came to Barbados. I always like to bring in Barbados in there to promote Barbados globally. So it was, as I said, business oriented. And then I did a follow up. And the follow up is actually set in a lot in Barbados
Mhm.
again. And so then that was nice. Those were contemporary romances with business. And then I felt to write a historical novel. And I started doing research. And the first one was called The Price of Freedom,
Mhm.
and it's set in Barbados in like the 1600s. So I had to do a lot of research to understand what was happening in Barbados at that time. It was not, it wasn't that much advanced into the civilization. I mean, Barbados had been landed in what, 1627, and
Mhm.
then I'm writing like in about 1670 something, I think it was. So I did a lot of research to find out what was going on so that the book would be authentic. So although it's fictional, all the riots and various things that would have happened, I set in there. It was all researched, and
Mhm.
that gave me a history bug. I just developed a love for history. So I wrote the first book. I hadn't really planned to write another one. And then people were asking me, it was really funny. People were asking, what happened to Deborah and Richard? As if they were real people,
Yeah.
they were fictional
But that's how
characters.
it goes when you love the characters. That's what happens.
It was really funny. And they said, what happened to her mother? And so I ended up writing a book about the heroine's mother. So I went back then to her story and then brought it back, brought it forward into her own story.
Yeah.
And then I wrote the third one, and I said, okay, I'm done with that. And what I really was trying to do with that historical series, although it's set in the slavery days and so on, is I wanted to bring a different perspective. I remember watching a video by this lady, I can't remember her name, but she wrote The Yellow Sun. She did a TED talk called The Danger of a Single Story. A man, I can't remember her name, she's an African lady. And
Mhm.
it really struck me because sometimes we have one perception of something and that it becomes our story. That's what we understand, that's what we know, that's what we believe. And
Mhm.
I'm writing from the point of view, although we were in slavery and slavery was a horrible institution, I
Mhm.
wanted to give it a different perspective. So I even had read somewhere some art or something was done by Jocelyn Gardner about the wives of the planters, how they were little more than chattel themselves because in those days they didn't have much say, and a lot of their husbands obviously had slave women and slave mistresses and so on. And what was going through their mind? How were they feeling? So I tried to write in that book from those different perspectives. So it's
Mhm.
not strictly the typical historical book in that period where it's just a total brutal position, slavery. It was
Yeah.
really in the house slaves, and not saying the house slaves were not brutalized
I
as well, but
understand.
it was a different perspective, and I want to bring a different perspective to even so you would even think, how did the wives feel about this whole thing
Yeah.
that was going on? How did the slaves feel? So yeah, that was
Now to say a little bit about the story, because you just mentioned the two characters' names, the two main characters' names, but the story actually is about because Deborah is a mulatto,
Mhm.
but she's a mixed race. Her
Right.
father is the plantation owner,
Yeah.
right? And Richard actually is an American, a North American
Right. From
from
Carolina. Yeah.
South Carolina.
Yeah. From Carolina. Yeah.
From Carolina, right?
Yeah.
So what you also did as part of the story was perhaps explore that link that we have as part of our heritage that we
Absolutely.
talk about a lot, but there really isn't that kind of delving into and really getting an understanding of how strong that connection may have been.
Yes, absolutely. That was another exciting thing, discovering that we colonized the Carolinas, and
Mhm.
I actually started. I met Rhoda Green through that, who is the honorary consul, for the Carolina. Da, da, da.
Mhm.
Yeah, so even that, discovering that it was amazing, and how we Barbadians left there and started colonies there, Charlestown at the time. All that was really fascinating. So that's been built into the book as well.
Mhm.
So as I said, that gave me the history bug, and I just love delving into history. So
Okay.
that series, I was planning to finish that book 3, and then I did a book 4, and I'm done there because although I had planned to do 2 more, I said no. I think this series is getting it's tiring for me now, so I don't want people to get sick of it. Although people are still asking me, what's going to happen in the next 2 books? I'm going, well, I'm not really planning to write the next 2 books anymore. I don't know. Who knows? That may change.
We'll see. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to tell you, as someone who sometimes follow authors with series, it's really annoying when the author clearly has gone board with the book and I'm waiting for like 3 years and there's no book coming out. So I just want you to know that on behalf of readers everywhere, that's what's going through our mind when we're waiting for the book and it doesn't come.
Okay. I actually went back and changed the beginning of this 4th book, and I said, because initially I was saying I had 2 more books coming. So I actually, you can do that in Amazon. You can go back and change something. So I went back and said, this is actually the last book in this series now, so that everybody who buys it now realizes that nothing is coming after this.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so that was my historical, and then when I went into Vaucluse, which is actually a biography, I spent 2 years researching and writing Vaucluse. And that book that was the hardest book I ever wrote. Really was. Normally I'd write a book from the beginning to end. Because it was research based, I had to write the beginning, I wrote the end, and then the middle, and hope to piece it together and hope that it flowed. But yes, this guy, Henry Peter Simmons, owned Vaucluse between 1816 and 1843. And he's buried in our roundabout. I live in Vaucluse. He's buried in our roundabout. So when I moved into the neighborhood, I saw this grave in the middle of the neighborhood. I went to investigate who it was, and saw his name and birth and everything. I went down to the archives. That started a relationship with the archives that I love. I could sit in the archives for the whole day and dig into those old things. It's amazing the history that's in there. And it's also tragic because a lot of them now are sealed up because they're so fragile that they can't be used. When I first started looking at Henry Peter Simmons, it was like 2000 and maybe 10 or 9. So, but so I could read stuff about like when he bought the plantation and so on. When I went back in 2015, 16, looking to really write the books, I hadn't planned to write the book. The things were sealed up. So I was so happy that I saw them before. I was able to see it with my own eyes before. But yeah, that was an amazing, amazing story because he was never married, but he had children from his two slave women. And he left his sons the plantation. And he was very much against the abolition of slavery. But I don't know what happened between his letters, which he wrote to Prime Minister of England, crying down abolition, saying this is his property and all this stuff. But from then to the time he wrote his will, something happened because he was like a different person. I mean, I guess he would have educated his sons and so on. Because when in his letters he was saying that the slave is not really fit for freedom. They don't have he was thinking they didn't have the mental capacity to do that. And but then he's left his children, who were slaves, by the way, his plantation. He freed them before the Emancipation Day. He freed them before then, but he seemed to have gone through some kind of a change. So I found his character very fascinating. As I said, the research I found in there was just totally amazing. So, and what I've done is I haven't written it as just like a history book. I've made it into what they call creative nonfiction. So it's like a story, but what I've done is pulled in the research into the story so that it's more palatable. And you learn stuff, but it's more in a more palatable, hopefully, format.
Okay. So if you could tell us, what are you working on now?
I am, as I said, I'm not actually writing. I should say I started the book.
Because you're not writing doesn't mean you're working on something.
I actually have started a book earlier this year, which I may finish, and it's called Instead of Your Shame. And it really is I'd almost say an autobiography in a way. I'm writing about things that I went through, like the whole imposter syndrome and some of those things, and how I got over them. So it really is a book. It's one of those hopefully inspirational books where I've been through a lot of things, even going back to childhood, and then how I've got over it and helping other people who may go through similar things to get over it. So that's what I've started for this year, but I really am looking to do a lot more online things. So that's what I'm going to be working on for the next few weeks or so.
Okay. All right. So I know that a lot of what you're doing is you're writing your books, you're putting together your characters. Often people recognize characteristics of themselves in the characters of their friends or authors. So it is perhaps a big part of your style or your skill set that you pay attention to, you notice human behavior, and so on. Are there any suggestions that you could give us all on how do we deal with, how do we interact with people? What have you learned from your observations of people that perhaps can help us as we interact with others, as we grow, as we live?
Wow, that's a deep one. I have to say,
Sorry.
that's a deep one. When I was growing up, I'd actually want to be a psychiatrist.
Okay.
I love the way the mind works. I find that
Mhm.
fascinating, and I guess I'm always kind of delving into people to find out what motivated you to do that. What, even if I don't ask them, I'm trying to wonder what motivated you to do that. So I find that I listen a lot to people. I watch a lot. I look at people a lot, and I try to get an understanding of why they're doing certain things, why they're behaving or acting in certain ways. And you were talking about bringing your characteristics of people into your characters, which is really funny because I was smiling because there's some aspects of my one of my male characters. I won't even say which one, which is my husband. A lot of my husband's some of his characteristics I brought into one of my characters, and then my daughter swears that she's Deborah in my book, who was very feisty, and she said if I was back in the slave days, I would be, I don't know, I'd be killed by now because I would not tolerate some of these stuff.
Yeah.
So I do happen to bring in people around me. I don't know if subliminal, like subconsciously or consciously, but I do end up writing in that. But I really think it's important to understand people's, I don't say not motives in the negative sense, but when people react in a certain way, there's
Mhm.
always a reason for it. It's usually they've been hurt in that way before, or they've had some experience and it's caused them to react in a certain way. Or so you need to give people a little bit of leeway, a little bit of just, I don't know, compassion, a little bit of empathy, whatever, because we all have our issues, we all have our baggage, and sometimes people may offend you, but they don't even know they've offended you, but it's because of experiences they've had that maybe made them react in a particular way. Like I
Mhm.
sometimes call something if something, an incident happens and you think it's a two, and the person blows off and they act like an eight. Like I tell my husband, well, that's an eight reaction to a two incident, and then I realize there must be something behind that reaction that has
Mhm.
caused you to act as if it's huge. There's other underlying things. So I think we just need to be a little more sensitive to each other. And
Yeah. And a little more aware, just like you're saying there, because we've had different experiences, we
yeah,
have different ways of reacting to things. So it might be a two to you, but it might be a
yes,
six to somebody else, and a
that's true.
thousand to another. It's just a red flag for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that's good. So see, I knew because every person who knows an author is always complaining, that sounds like
I
me.
mean,
You got to stop writing like me. So I knew that somewhere in there in those stories. And as you say, it's not even a conscious decision that you're going to, but you see a characteristic, you
yeah,
found it interesting, and you
yeah,
incorporate it into what you are doing.
it's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else are you planning for the year? Because you mentioned the fact that you want to get more into the online things. You
Hmm.
mentioned the fact that right now you have your video series,
Yeah.
and you have mentioned that you've done the face-to-face writing, but
Hmm.
you're considering moving into a virtual scenario.
Yeah.
So, what, if anything, would you say you have planned now as you think about it for the rest
Okay.
of the year?
Well, one thing I really want to do is a series called Loving Monday. And I was thinking, is it the
Yeah,
right
because
time?
Monday always gets a bad rap.
I don't know why.
Everybody's always saying that they love Friday, they love the weekend, and oh no, it's Monday, it's terrible. Mondays get a bad rap, but go on.
It was a bad rap for me back when I was hating my job, and that's what really made me move. So
Yeah.
I really want to share that with people because I want people to love Monday and every day. Like right now, I'm in a place where I love every day. I don't have to fight to get out of bed. I love what I'm doing, and that's why I want to share with people. So whether it's going to be virtual or whether I go into organizations and do it, I was thinking of doing like a lunch and learn. We used to have lunch and learns at Ernst Young where you have
Mhm.
somebody come in at lunchtime, you eat your sandwich or whatever, and you chat and stuff. So I'd like to do that and then have a video series for people to do it at their own leisure. And then along with that, I'm actually working with my daughter to create a line of products to go with the Loving Monday. So I have a number of um, quotes that I wrote, like the one I shared with you, until you can learn to do what you learn to love what you do, those kind of things. And
Mm-hmm.
because she's an artist, she has all these wonderful paintings, and she's done a couple for me where she can turn them into cushions now. We found a company in, I think it's Canada, which can make
Mm-hmm.
the art into cushions, and I can put my quotations on it. So in addition to doing like the 11 Monday, whatever, I'll have a whole series of maybe cushions. It could be um, various things. You put it on anything. You can
Mm-hmm.
put the art on anything. Computer. People still use mice. Computer. Do you say mice or
Oh, you
mouse?
mean those mats that you put?
Those
Yeah,
things like,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know. I
Yeah,
mine
there
is
are a lot
touch
of people
screen,
who
so I
still
didn't.
use external mouse.
Right. So
Mice.
there are various things you can put your mice, mouses. You, you can put your art on various things. So I'm gonna be paying her for her art, right? And just
Mhm.
putting my quotations on it and using that to go along with the line. So there are various things I'm planning to do. And like I said, get out there more, do more networking events, come to the LinkedIn events and the various things that you're having. Because to tell the truth, I'm a bit of an introvert. I'm a
Mhm.
speaker, and you can put a microphone in my hand. I can speak for hours, but I really am an introvert. So I
Mhm.
it, I have to really make an effort to come out. So I've been really happy at home for these last 6 weeks. 6 weeks I'm
Yeah.
just producing away and happy typing up stuff and reading. So I really need to make an effort to come out more and see more of what is out there. And when I was at Ernst Young, we were always out doing things, networking and so
Mhm.
on. I guess when you start to write and you're doing things more in front of your computer, you really need to make
Mhm.
an effort to connect with people out there and chat and just see what other people are doing.
Okay. All right. So, as an introvert who's been loving this lockdown period, this get at home period, being able to spend a little time where you have your energy is your own and you could be guided by what you want to do. How are you looking forward to the shift back to the new normal where we
Hmm.
are easing lockdowns and we're moving out and we are being allowed to go back out into the world, traffic again?
Oh, I'm not really looking forward to that. The other day, as I said, the other day I had to go to the supermarket. I've been getting delivery service. So the other day I had to go to the supermarket and I was totally confused. I was in turmoil because I saw the markings in the aisles where you have to stand between. That was new to me because I hadn't been out for 6 weeks literally because my children came in March and
Wow.
we were shut down from March. We were self
Yeah.
quarantined and then. So I'm not really looking forward to that part of things, but I am looking forward
Mhm.
to human interaction because it's
Okay.
not quite the same when you're talking to people online as
Mhm.
having energy when you're in the room and that dynamic is obviously different. So
Yeah.
that part of things I'm really looking forward to. Just speaking to
Yeah.
people and training and connecting with people.
Yeah, because I understand that. Because as a trainer, there's a big difference between being in a training room, you're standing in front of a group, you're talking, and they're giving you back the same kind of energy as opposed
Yeah,
to when it's online. Because
yeah,
no matter how much they interact online, it is still never the same. You're not
absolutely.
getting the body language, you're not getting the interaction, the smile, the side joke, those
Yeah,
kinds of things. You just don't have the same kind of energy. And
especially if
that's
they're muted,
interesting.
especially if they're muted, because it's like,
Yeah, yeah, and so and no video.
yeah,
Muted and no video, and you have no idea. And as I said to you, it's like you're talking to a wall. So you're
yeah.
sharing information, you have no idea. And then at the end of the session, when it's all over, they're like, "Oh, this was a great session," and you go, "Really?
Really.
I couldn't tell."
It's true. It's true. It's true.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's interesting because making that transition back now into what is being described as this new normal
Hmm.
says that even though we are moving out and restrictions are being lessened, the idea or the opinions seem to be that we're not necessarily going back to the way that things
Yeah.
were.
Yeah.
So that's why it keeps being referred to as a new normal.
Yeah.
So what, if any, as we get ready to do in our last 6 minutes,
Hmm.
what, if anything, would you leave as, let's say, parting advice, parting words for our group in terms of how they should move forward, not just moving out of COVID, but
Hmm.
generally as you're going forward, they're growing, they're developing, pursuing their own entrepreneurship interest or business interest. What would be some words of advice you would leave with our community?
Well, I would say what this shutdown has taught me was really to just spend time building yourself, spending time with yourself, spending time um, developing your spiritual life, and just being grounded. And I think that's really important going forward because we could get back into the busyness again. So I think
Mm-hmm.
like, in the beginning, before you even start your day, just spend some time getting grounded, spending some time building your spiritual life, connecting, and let that be how you plan your day, and really prioritize what's important. I think we realized that there are a lot of things we thought were important that really weren't that important because we've done without them, we can do without them. So even in terms of how we spend our money, we can realize that, you know what, we don't really need that.
Yeah.
We did 6 weeks without it. We don't really need that. So even going back out, I think we really need to reassess our lives and what is important. Relationships more so than spending time at work. I mean, I feel have friends who are working from home and they seem to be working harder than if they were actually in an
Yeah.
office. So I think we really need to begin to discipline ourselves to turn off. And
Mm-hmm.
especially when you're working for yourself, I should be talking to myself. I don't think I got this all covered, right? Because sometimes I'm at my computer at 10 o'clock and I'm doing stuff. But you really need to, but then again, I may be chilling for the rest of the day too. So my hours might be different. But we really need to decide what's important and go after it. And don't let any more time go by without doing the things that you're passionate about, that you've been putting off. You know, there's so many, as you said, there are people who said, I want to write a book and they haven't done it. I think
Mm-hmm.
life is just too short to just be delaying things forever. We really need to. I have a quote that says, you've been given gifts, use them before your expiration date, before your expiration date. So
Yeah.
don't leave this planet with all the stuff that you have inside you. This is an opportunity now, especially before we get fully out there, to
Mm-hmm.
really start to do the things that we've been planning to talking about doing, to do them. Just do them. And then as we go back out there, prioritize the things that really are important and not the things that we think are important.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Very good advice. And so, what I am taking away from that is that really, for a lot of us, we need to shift the way that we think about things.
Yes,
Because
absolutely.
what you've outlined there is really that recognition that what is important
Hmm.
isn't what you used to think was important. Really identify it and work with it. Do
Yes,
the things that you really want to do. Don't put off your dreams. So shift your mindset.
absolutely.
Value yourself, value your ability to, or your desire to
Hmm.
become more, because a lot of us don't. We think we have the dream, but we think it's not right, or it's not fair, or
True.
it's too much, or we don't deserve it. I also remember early in our discussion, you mentioned the imposter syndrome, and
Hmm.
the fact that we need to recognize that we have capabilities and we have skills. We all have that oil, that
Yes.
talent, that we just have to be honest with ourselves, do a little digging,
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
be aware that we have something we can bring to the table.
Yep.
And then definitely start where you are. We all
Yes,
have
absolutely.
something in our house
Yes.
that we can work with and
Yeah.
move forward.
Yep.
All
Absolutely.
right. So, if the people want to get in touch with you to find out more information,
Mhm.
to persuade you to write more in any of your series, to offer ideas or suggestions, or to get guidance, or seek advice, or hire you as an accountant or a consultant,
Not
any
accountant.
of those many, many things that you do, how can they get in touch with you?
Okay, well, my website is there, as I said, donnaevery.com. You can go in there and you'll see my video series, my books, and various things that I do. And also, you can email me at donna@donnaevery.com. And that's where you can find me. And I'd be happy to chat, encourage, help you along. And I always help out women, especially. I mean, I give away so much free advice. I'm happy to help people to get started once they're committed to doing their part as well.
Okay. And willing to be disciplined, because the
Yes.
discipline is an important part. If
Yeah,
nothing
absolutely.
else, we have to remember that the discipline is an important part of being able to reach your goals and achieve what you want to achieve.
Absolutely.
All right. So thank you very much, Donna Every. We
Thank you.
all got the opportunity to meet the author and to realize what is really behind that, and to realize that there is a lot more than just the creative side, but there's also the business side that goes along, and
Mhm.
that there is growth and there's development continuing. It's been a pleasure having you here.
Thank
You, of course, will now need to be a more active part of our LinkedIn local Barbados
Absolutely.
community. Hint, hint.
Absolutely.
That was a little subtle. And for those of you who have joined us this evening, we are happy to have you be a part of the live broadcast for this event. Please remember, you can follow us. Our hashtag is LinkedIn Local Barbados. There's also LinkedIn Local Caribbean as a hashtag. Visit the website, LinkedIn Local Caribbean. Check out our other upcoming events. We're always happy to have you be a part of our sessions. We're here on LinkedIn Live every Thursday. We run 5 to 6. And next week, I'm also going to have a very interesting discussion with another member of our community. So I look forward to seeing you then. Thank you. Stay safe. Have a good evening and stay sane. And don't give up on your dreams.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Marjorie.
Donna.
Bye bye.
All right. Bye.